Hi guys, so I'm going to help you with the questions and answers for chapters 6 and 7. So the first one says quick write. It says write about a time that you received bad news. What was it and how did it make you feel? So that's on your own because I don't know what your stories are, so you have to share with me. I'm trying to think of a time that I received bad news. My mom's dog, which I kind of grew up with for a while, Lucy, she got really sick. So I remember that because it wasn't that long ago. And so I would write about that and I would talk about how it made me really sad. So we're going to multiple choice. Number 1, who breaks the bad news to Wilbur? So again, I will help you this week with the page numbers and where to find them, but eventually you're going to have to do it all on your own. So if you go to page 49 and then you go down to paragraph 6, it says, "Well, I don't like to spread bad news," said the sheep, "but they're fattening you up because they're going to kill you, that's why." So who said that? The sheep. The sheep told him. Number 2, how many goslings hatch? If you go back up to the previous chapter, chapter 6, and you go to page 45, it says right there at the top, "There are 7, said the goose." So there are 7 goslings. Sequencing. Put the statements in chronological order using the numbers 1 through 5. If you did your paper yesterday like I asked you to, this would be really easy for you. So you should read through these and find them in the book, but I already did that for you. So the first thing that happened was the early summer days arrive. So you would put a 1 by that. The next thing that happens is Charlotte announces the goose eggs hatching, so that's number 2. After that, Templeton asks if he can have the unhatched egg, so that's number 3. After that, Wilbur becomes hysterical upon hearing that he will soon be killed, so that's number 4. And then finally, number 5 is Charlotte reassures Wilbur that she will save him. Theme. Below, write 2 lessons that could be learned from these chapters. You guys are going to do that on your own. I can't tell you. You have to think. What are 2 lessons from these chapters that you could share with somebody else? Short answers. What do the farm animals think of Templeton? Use textual evidence to support your answer. Text evidence, there you go. So I'm going to help you with these. If you go to page 45 again, and you start at paragraph 4, it says, "At this point, Templeton showed his nose from his hiding place under Wilbur's trough. He glanced at Fern, then crept cautiously toward the goose, keeping close to the wall. Everyone watched him, for he was not well liked, not trusted." So, what do they think of Templeton? And you could make this an opinion. You could say, in my opinion, I think the farm animals do not like Templeton. And then your evidence would be your reasons. So you could say first, and then go to that paragraph I just read to you and give me a reason. Next, go to that paragraph, give me a reason. Last, okay? Tell me why they don't like him. Number 2, who tells Wilbur bad news? What is the bad news? What is Wilbur's reaction to the bad news? So number 2, if we go to page 49, and then if you go to paragraph 6, "Well, I don't like to spread bad news," said the sheep, "but they're fattening you up because they're going to kill you, that's why." "They're going to what?" screamed Wilbur. Fern grew rigid on her stool. So that's where it starts. The sheep tells him he is obviously sad and hysterical, and he kind of goes a little crazy. So keep reading. I want you to reread those pages, okay? Reread those pages to the end of the chapter. It's only 3 pages, I think. And tell me who tells him the bad news. You could do first, next, and last for this one. So first, the sheep tells Wilbur that he's going to be killed. Next, the bad news is that he's going to die. And then you could say after that, Wilbur does this and that and blah, blah, blah. And finally, tell me how that chapter ends. Number 3, how does Charlotte reassure Wilbur after he hears the bad news? Use textual evidence to support your answer. So how does Charlotte support him? If you go to the end of that chapter, let's see, go to page 51. And if you go to paragraph 5, you can see Charlotte says, "You shall not die," said Charlotte briskly. "What, really?" cried Wilbur. "Who's going to save me?" "I am," said Charlotte. "How?" asked Wilbur. "That remains to be seen, but I am going to save you, and I want you to quiet down immediately. You're carrying on in a childish way. Stop your crying. I can't stand hysterics." So use that area, that part of the book, to tell me, again, you could use first, next, then last, how Charlotte reassures Wilbur, okay? Then we're on to the last page with our vocab, okay? So I have my vocabulary flashcards pulled up, and I see that the first one is appalled. The definition of appalled that you will put down is dismayed or disgusted. Synonyms mean the same thing. Antonyms are opposite. So what is the same thing as disgusted? Ugh. What's the opposite of disgusted? The antonym. Then you have detested. Detested means hated. What's a synonym for hated? What means the same thing as hate? And then antonym, what is the opposite of hate? Rigid means stiff. Stiff, kind of like a board. Like if you push on something, it doesn't really move. So what is the same thing as stiff? The synonym for stiff. And what's the opposite of stiff? The antonym. Then you have to fill in the blank. I told my mother that I blank asparagus, but she insisted that I finish every last bit of it before leaving the dinner table. What goes there? Appalled, detested, or rigid? We were blank to hear that someone had stolen our bikes right out of our backyard. What goes there? Appalled, detested, or rigid? I grew blank as I nervously awaited my turn to give an oral presentation in class. Appalled, detested, or rigid? Beyond, in the quote bubble below, write a quote from any of the characters in the chapters you just read. Then, on the lines, explain what the quote tells you about him or her. So think about things that characters have said in chapters 6 and 7. And think to yourself, did a character in these 2 chapters say something that helped me understand that character more? So it could be a quote from Wilbur, from the sheep, from Templeton, from the goose, from Charlotte, from Fern. It could be a quote from anyone in chapters 6 and 7. Write that down in the quote bubble. And then tell me, how does that help you understand that character more? What does it say about that character? Okay? So that is it for chapters 6 and 7, and we will read chapters 8 and 9 tomorrow. Okay, bye.